Frank Sinatra JRB kidnapping. On December 8, 1963, the son of one of the most famous and beloved singers of all time, Frank Sinatra JRB, was kidnapped from a hotel room in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. What seemed to be a straightforward case of a man seeking ransom turned into one of the most intense and bizarre criminal cases of the 20th century. Frank Sinatra JRB's kidnapping would not only test the strength of the Sinatra family but also shine a harsh light on a world full of secrets, threats, and unexpected twists. Frank Sinatra JRB was no stranger to the spotlight. As the son of Frank Sinatra, he was born into fame and fortune, but this would not protect him from the terrifying ordeal that was to come. His kidnapping was a high-profile case that shook the nation and captivated the public for months. This case wasn't just about the crime. It was about a family under pressure, a famous name being dragged through a web of tension, and a rescue mission that turned out to be much more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Frank Sinatra JRB, the man behind the name Frank Sinatra. JRB was born on January 10, 1944, to the legendary Frank Sinatra and his first wife, Nancy Barbato. Growing up in the shadows of his famous father, he was always in the public eye. Unlike his father, Frank JRB did not find the same level of immediate stardom. He had musical aspirations of his own, trying to carve out a career in the world of entertainment, but always dealing with the pressure of being the son of one of the most iconic singers in history. Throughout his life, Frank JRB struggled with living up to the expectations of his father's immense fame. Frank Sinatra Siaster, though loving, was a domineering figure in his son's life, often pushing him to succeed. Frank JRB wasn't the first Sinatra to pursue a music career, but he had a hard time stepping out of the towering shadow cast by his father. Though Frank JRB tried to make his own name in the music world, he was often seen as the lesser-known Sinatra, with his career overshadowed by the success of his father. He was an accomplished musician and singer in his own right, performing with big bands and eventually starting his own orchestra. Still, no matter how much he tried to escape it, his last name was always a constant reminder of the world he was born into. The kidnapping plot in December 1963. Frank Sinatra JRB found himself on the road, performing in a musical show in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. He was staying at the famed Calneva Lodge, a luxurious hotel and casino owned by his father's close friend, entertainer and business mogul, Frank Sinatra Siaster. It was supposed to be just another stop on his tour, but for Frank JRB, this would turn into a nightmare. At the time, Frank Sinatra JRB was 19 years old. He had just completed a performance at the Calneva Lodge and returned to his hotel room, unaware that a group of 3 men were already scheming to kidnap him for ransom. The men were led by a man named Joe Amsler, a small-time crook who had a history of criminal activity, but no real success in the world of crime. Amsler was driven by desperation and saw Frank Sinatra JRB as the perfect target. Amsler, along with 2 accomplices, Lenny the Weasel, Maggio, and a man named Johnny DeCarlo, had a plan. They believed that by kidnapping the young Sinatra, they could hold him for ransom and demand a significant sum of money from his famous father, who was one of the wealthiest men in the entertainment industry. At approximately 8:00 p.m. on that fateful night, Frank Sinatra JRB was taken from his room. Amsler and his crew broke into the room and kidnapped Sinatra JRB, bundling him into a car and taking him to a remote location. They had planned every detail meticulously, but what they didn't account for was the sheer determination of the Sinatra family and the authorities, who would stop at nothing to bring the young singer home. The ransom and the search. The kidnappers immediately contacted Frank Sinatra Siaster and demanded $240,000 in ransom for a man of Sinatra Siaster's wealth. This was a relatively small sum, but the real danger was the fact that his son's life was at stake. Sinatra Siaster was informed that the ransom money would need to be delivered in a specific location, and he was told not to involve the police. However, Frank Sinatra Siaster knew he had to involve the authorities. He immediately contacted the FBI, who launched an intense and highly secretive investigation. The FBI went into full force, doing everything in their power to track down the criminals. while also trying to keep the details of the case quiet so as not to risk Frank JRB's life. The FBI was especially keen to locate the kidnappers quickly, knowing that time was a critical factor in the case. As the ransom demands escalated, the FBI used every resource at their disposal to track the movement of the suspects. Despite this, the kidnappers seemed to be one step ahead. After days of back and forth, the FBI, with the help of Frank Sinatra's Seaster, set a trap for the kidnappers. They had intercepted communications and gathered enough evidence to pinpoint the location where the ransom exchange was set to occur. The plan was to deliver the money, but with law enforcement standing by, ready to make an arrest. On December 15, 1963, the FBI set up a sting operation. The exchange was planned to take place in a parking lot in the town of Blythe, California, near the Arizona border. Frank Sinatra's Seaster was informed of the details, and the FBI informed him they would provide him with fake money that was rigged with a tracking device. At the appointed time, the ransom money was delivered. As Frank Sinatra's Seaster watched nervously from a distance, the kidnappers showed up to receive the ransom. In an unexpected twist, the FBI swooped in and arrested the entire crew. The rescue mission was a success. Frank Sinatra JRB was found safe and sound, and the kidnappers were taken into custody. The men who had abducted Frank Sinatra JRB were eventually charged and convicted of kidnapping. Joe Amsler, the mastermind behind the plot, was sentenced to life in prison. His accomplices, Maggio and DiCarlo, were also given lengthy prison sentences. Sinatra JRB was fortunate to escape with his life, but the trauma of the event would stay with him for years to come. The aftermath of Frank Sinatra JRB's kidnapping was chaotic. The story of his abduction captivated the media and the public alike. News outlets across the world reported the harrowing details of the case. The involvement of his famous father, Frank Sinatra's Seaster, added to the intrigue of the story, and people were fascinated by the idea of a famous celebrity family being victimized in such a way. Frank Sinatra JRB faced a tremendous amount of pressure after his return. While he was physically unharmed, the emotional toll of the kidnapping was immense. He would later speak about the trauma he experienced during his time in captivity. The young Sinatra also faced public scrutiny, with some questioning whether he had been a target because of his privileged life and the fame of his father. As for Frank Sinatra's Seaster, he was deeply shaken by the event but relieved that his son had returned home safely. The ordeal brought the family closer together, but it also served as a reminder of the dangers and vulnerabilities that come with fame. In the years following the kidnapping, Frank Sinatra JRB continued his career in music, but he would never be able to escape the shadow of the terrifying event. Though he resumed performing, the incident affected him in ways that would take years to fully understand. Frank JRB dealt with the trauma of the kidnapping for much of his life, and the scars left by the ordeal never fully faded. The kidnapping of Frank Sinatra JRB remains one of the most shocking crimes in the world of celebrity. The story is a tale of danger, family loyalty, and the consequences of living in the public eye. For Frank Sinatra JRB, it was a reminder that even the most privileged lives can be turned upside down in an instant. The kidnapping of Frank Sinatra JRB is a chilling reminder of how quickly fame can turn into a nightmare. What began as a simple ransom plot turned into an unforgettable moment in history, leaving behind a legacy of fear, courage, and the unbreakable bond of family. The criminal masterminds behind this dark plot will forever be remembered as the ones who sought to take advantage of a man's name and wealth. But ultimately their plan failed, and Frank Sinatra JRB emerged from the darkness, though forever changed. What are your thoughts on the Frank Sinatra JRB kidnapping? Do you think it was a calculated attempt for financial gain, or was it an act of desperation by criminals who didn't fully understand the gravity of their actions? Let us know in the comments below. And for more incredible true crime stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Files. Stay tuned for more unsettling mysteries from the dark corners of history. Don't forget to check out our next video, The Dark World of Kidnapping, and see how other cases like Frank Sinatra JRB's unfolded. Click here to watch now.